Good morning, Pomfret. Your first chapel speaker was a chili pepper for her first Halloween. Your second chapel speaker was Stitch. Your third chapel speaker was Optimus Prime. And your fourth chapel speaker was the Blue Ninja. Your chapel speakers today are Claire McFarlin, Charlotte Wu, James Xiong, and Youm. Enjoy.
Good morning, Pomfret. When I sat down to write this, I ended up staring blankly at my computer screen. I was frozen. I couldn't force myself to start typing, even though I had so much to say. It was because I was scared. Scared because no words matched my thoughts, no extraordinary description matched my gratitude, and no number of words could convey my experience. My mom has been asking me what I'm writing about for months. Every time I would respond, I don't know. It's so hard to come up with ideas. I want to talk about something really special to me, and I'll figure it out eventually. That lie became harder each and every time she asked. I knew what I wanted to say. I had my topic picked out since my sophomore year. And for my mom, it is probably the last thing she's expecting. I'd always known that I wanted to talk about her. Grief is a strange phenomenon. It's indescribable feelings and thoughts, ones that aren't just in your head, but where your body starts to shake and your chest gets all tight. It comes in moments where you're least expecting it, paralyzing you in shock. For most, grief is only recognized as a ball and chain weighing you down, a constant reminder of loss. We are helplessly pulled into a cycle of sadness and anger. I don't have that relationship with grief. For the longest time, I never saw it. Not the sadness, not the tears, not the time sitting reminiscing of a once fuller house. When I lost my dad to cancer, I did not live in a house of stagnant, saddening grief. I think this is why I never understood the full gravity of this emotion. I never understood grief in that way. I only saw it as strength. My mom never let me see her cry. She never missed an event. She never said no to an adventure. And my mom, she never stopped moving forward. I never could appreciate it at the time, but every day that passed, I realized what strength that took. My mom has more strength than anyone I know. So for me, grief is not sadness, it is a test of strength and the hope that you have in your heart. When I have to explain that I lost my father to cancer, I used to be filled with shame. Not shame in my situation, but in myself. Everyone would always tell me that I'm so brave and how strong I am for going through loss so young. I don't think I've ever felt more ashamed than in those moments. My dad was sick almost my whole life, and for me, none of it was hard. These subtle comments of sympathy struck me. This should be hard. It should be miserable, so I wasn't it. I started to believe that I was a horrible person. Something must have been wrong with me. Why could my dad be so sick and I'm still okay? This mindset stuck with me until last year. My childhood was magical. I went on amazing trips, had countless sleepovers, so many family visits and long beach days. I went to Cape Cod beach houses, summers in Maine, and trips all throughout California. I was probably the most well-traveled kid you'd ever met. Years of these adventures are what make up most of my core memories. Looking back, I realized one thing was always missing: my parents. It confused me. I couldn't even start to understand why I had all these amazing experiences, yet my mom and dad were absent from it all. At the time, I didn't know that my dad had cancer. I did not know that he was sick until much later in his illness. A year ago, I was thinking back on these travels, and it hit me suddenly. All these adventures, all these magical times, was when my dad was sick. I wasn't on some sightseeing cross-country tour. I was taken in by friends and family who were lending a helping hand. My world crumbled. I felt as if I was living a lie. I had been living blindly in an elaborate, orchestrated act to keep me unknowing. Realizing this brought me into a place of shame and immense sadness. I was living a picture-perfect life without my mom and dad. I was laughing with cousins, eating my third round of dessert, and having week-long sleepovers while my family went through something unimaginable. How could I be so horrible, so careless? I had never felt more ashamed. This was until last year. I started to ask questions. I started to want details. I needed to know why. Why did you send me here? What was really happening? Why? I just needed to know. And my mom answered. Those answers broke my shame. Her answers made me stop and think. I spent a lot of time reflecting. Every question my mom answered opened my eyes. I took a step back and just paused. I truly had a change in perspective. not just of my loss, but of my mom. She explained how my magical trips were to protect me from the truth. I learned that she traveled the country with her sick husband, meeting with doctors, specialists, and anyone she could. She was holding his hand in hospital rooms. She never broke down. She was fighting for him as hard as he was fighting for himself. Throughout those years, there was never a moment I felt alone. Never a time I went to sleep sad. Never a time I wasn't surrounded by those who loved me most. My mom never stopped moving forward. She never let anything stop her. She took life as it came and lived it as Dad would want her to. She did this with me at the forefront of it. Nothing, and truly nothing she did was for anything but my best. All of my magical childhood trips were for my protection, to shield me from experiencing the horrors of cancer. She did and does give me the life that he wanted. We didn't stop and cry. We traveled and smiled about stories of Dad over dinner. We suffered such a great loss, but that is nothing compared to the amazing memories of the man that we loved. Saying that my mom is brave doesn't feel like enough. She has a bravery to love so hard, fight for so long, and handle loss with such strength. Gratitude feels like an understated word. It can't encapsulate the feelings I have for you, Mom. Admiration and love simply aren't enough. Through our loss, you showed up with joy and smiles. Every moment, every accomplishment I wish Dad could have seen, you were there. You cheered so loud that I never noticed anyone who didn't. You took an event that could have stopped us in life and used it as momentum to create joy, purpose, and honor Dad's memory. I am always and forever in awe of the strength that you possess. I love you. I'd like to finish with a few short gratitudes. Thank you to Miss Lehman. You've supported me endlessly. I never would have found a passion in art without you. To the horse advisory, I wouldn't want to play extremely competitive card games with anyone else. I'd especially like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Horst. I've never had people show up for me as you both do. Your extraordinary kindness does not go unnoticed. You really have become my Pomfret parents. Mr. Horst, I had trouble finding the words to describe my gratitude for you, but your patience and compassion you've shown me these past few years I will carry with me forever. Steve, I'm so grateful to have had you as my coach. I never thought I could love a sport so much until you came along. To all the people, especially Nolan, who have made my Pomfret experience so special, I thank you. Matt, I know that I made it more than difficult for you to come into my mom and I's lives, but I'm beyond grateful you did. You're a special person with one of the biggest hearts that I know, and I'm grateful every day that you and my mom found each other. Finally, I'd like to thank my dad. I wouldn't be the person I am today without you, and I love and miss you every day. My name is Claire Emerson McFarlin, and I'm a three-year senior here on the Hilltop. Thank you, Pomfret.
Good morning, Pomfret. We always hear that time is precious, but time isn't just precious, it's non-refundable. You can earn money back, redo an assignment, but you can never get a minute back once it's gone. This really stood out to me when I tried to log in during a random study hall. For once, I finally sat at my desk, focused with no phone, and studied. I was convinced that I'd been studying for at least an hour, but in reality, only 20 minutes had passed. But in those 20 minutes, I had completed the same amount of work I usually do in an hour. That made me realize how powerful time really is when we give it our full attention and how much of it we waste unconsciously on a daily basis. This reminded me of one of my friends who started college at 16 years old. While I was spending afternoons playing video games and throwing mud around in middle school, he took the SAT, got a perfect score, studied college-level courses, and won multiple awards in the math, chemistry, and physics Olympiad. We both had the same amount of hours in a day, and the only difference was that he actually used his time efficiently. I'm not here to say that we need to study all day or never relax. If I could go back in time, I wouldn't study as much as my friend did either, but I would use my time more intentionally and finish things more efficiently so I could actually relax later instead of stressing while scrolling for hours. We don't have to be busy every second, but we should notice and choose how we use our time. When you procrastinate, pause for a moment and ask, is this really how I want to spend my time? Will I feel good about this later? If yes, enjoy it. If not, perhaps do something with the answer yes. Since time is so valuable, let's be concise and go into the gratitudes. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for always supporting me and trusting me to be financially responsible. Thank you, Mr. Brown, for being the nicest and most patient teacher ever. Thank you, Angeline, for being my best friend at Pomfret. And thank you, Angeline's mom, for bringing us food and bringing us to Grill 37. My name is Charlotte Wu, and I'm a 3-year senior on the Hilltop. Thank you.
Good morning, Pomfret. Living alongside time. Every morning for the past 3 years and counting, I wake up to the first sound of my alarm at 7:50 a.m. Then, I automatically press the snooze button to go back to sleep for another precious 10 minutes. And finally, I get out of my bed at 8:10 to get ready for school. Time. The very thing I think about from start of day to end of night. About time, which isn't to say that I found myself thinking about who invented time or what time it was. I do that during classes when I stare at the clock. Rather, I found myself thinking about how time moves differently around here. In this boarding school, in this very place we call our dear home. When in reality, it feels more like an isolated country with its own customs and rhythms and ways of counting the hours that have nothing to do with the outside world. Isn't it funny how we measure our lives here? Not in months or seasons like normal people, but in terms and semesters and weekends and breaks and the striking notification sounds of Google Calendar. There's something about this place's time that feels both infinite and brief. Infinite because Mr. Martin is going over the digestive system for the 20th time in one block, and brief because you're only halfway through your math test and just 10 minutes remain in class. Infinite because the 2,000-meter piece on the erg machine, which is only supposed to take around 7 minutes, can turn into 30 minutes in hell. And brief because a race against Berkshire on Quasset Lake, which took around 6 minutes, felt only like 2. Infinite because a random Tuesday in January with 5 classes can stretch like a rubber band. And brief because it's suddenly senior year and you're wondering where the last 3 years went and how it's possible that the kid who once couldn't find his classes or dining hall can now give tours to prospective families without getting lost. In my sophomore year in Dr. Burns' class of Art and Creativity, I wrote a poem. Here's how I started it. Time is precious as reality slips. Though I had only written it for submitting an assignment, I now feel it myself. The strange suspension that happens when you're deep in a story and suddenly realize you've been reading for 2 hours when it felt only like 2 minutes. For me, I've been reading the book about the hilltop, where the plot moves in a kind of literary time, moving forward while doubling back on itself, where I'm currently speaking in front of you guys while thinking about how I first arrived at Pomfret, when I come 3 days late compared to everyone else, dialing the SOC number and seeing Mr. Gibbs on his bike and telling him I lived in Clemont because I didn't know it was pronounced Clement at that time. That first night, time stopped entirely. Of course, there are other times when time stopped completely, just as right now, as I stand here reflecting on all my past actions, silly, embarrassing, or heroic, and seeing all the familiar faces that I've interacted with. Or the finals week in the library, when everyone is so focused, all you hear is the sound of pens scribbling over notebooks. Time stopped, then too. And then there are the moments when time speeds up beyond all reasons. The last day of each term, when you're packing your bags and saying goodbyes and making promises about next year, or when everyone's hanging out in the tuck or someone's room watching the finals of a sports game. But perhaps the strangest thing I find about this kingdom is how elastic it becomes. How a single conversation with a friend can start from talking to our classes, to sports, to hobbies, to plans for the weekends, then to our deepest fears. Or when you sit on the quad and watch as the sun sets slowly until all that is left in the sky are constellations made of the tiny, shining stars. Time. About time. About our time. About our time here. Time isn't the clock or the banners that come up on the calendar, or the classes that you have to attend every day, or the very thing that you may feel is wasting away as you sit and hear me talk about such an abstract matter. But rather, it's the moments that happen in between, the conversations that matter, the situations that matter, the fun that matters, the sounds that matter, and that's time, the real time that exists here on the hilltop. I always find myself asking my friends a certain question at the end of the year. This year went by really fast, hasn't it? Well, the image of me moving into the dorm rooms and beginning my first classes would again conjure up in my head. And while I rethink every little thing that I have done in the year, time again will pop into my head, reminding me that it existed, though I never really paid attention to it. The precious gift of the hilltop, not measured by the clock, but inhibited, moment by moment, choice by choice, breath by breath. And maybe I now live inside of time rather than alongside it. And when I am uncertain of things, well, only time can tell. To my parents, 妈，谢谢你一直来的陪伴，从温哥华到北京再到纽约，我想对你表达的感激有太多太多了。谢谢你在我每次失败的时候鼓励我，在我看不到的地方支持我。老爸，不知道你最近过得怎么样？虽然我们平常也不怎么闲聊，也不怎么发信息，但我知道你心里一直有我的。谢谢你这么多年对我的支持，我爱你们。To my four-year advisor, Mr. Lyon, from calling you sir to coach to Mr. Lyon and now to random nicknames, thank you for helping me throughout my Pomfret career, and shout out to Lyon Advisory. To all my friends and teammates, thank you so much for making my time at Pomfret a special one. I couldn't have done it without you guys. To the teachers and coaches, you guys have taught me lessons I will never forget. I am forever grateful. My name is Xiong, and I'm a four-year senior here on the Hilltop. Thank you, Pomfret.
Good morning, Pomfret. Most of you have probably heard the phrase, just do it. This phrase is the slogan of my favorite sporting brand, Nike. It is what Alexander the Great said in response to his troops' hesitation to jump into battle. It is also the ideal that I try to live by. After reflecting on this phrase for a long time, I realized that each of these three words, just, do, and it, represents a major area of growth in my life. So today, I'd like to share 3 short stories that give personal meaning to each of these words. My first story is about my application process to Pomfret. In 2022, I was living in Spain with my family. I was in 8th grade and preparing to apply for a private boarding school in the US. I wanted to try living a completely new lifestyle, so I decided to take on the challenge. But applying to schools here wasn't easy. I had to take the SSAT and TOEFL, write essays, and ask teachers for recommendations. None of my friends had ever applied to school in the US, and even my school had no idea how to help. I didn't know where to start, and giving up on my little fantasy seemed like a much easier option. But when I asked my parents for help, my mother said something that changed how I would approach my current situation. She told me to just start. Those 2 words became the spark that began my journey to the US. My mom has always been someone who doesn't hesitate when making big decisions. When I was 7, she accepted a job offer in Spain and decided to move our entire family from Korea. At the time, it seemed like a huge risk, especially since my dad had a stable job in Korea. But it turned out to be one of the best decisions she ever made. Because of that one leap, I'm able to stand here today. Following her example, I took the first step in my application process by buying some prep books. Once I started, everything else slowly fell into place. It became clear to me that the word just isn't about acting impulsively, but about having the courage to begin. Thank you, Mom, for teaching me that lesson. My second story is about squash. My first big decision after arriving at Pomfret was choosing my winter sport. I hadn't played any of the sports offered in winter, so I was nervous about making the wrong choice and being stuck with it the whole term. When I called my parents to ask them for advice, my dad told me to worry less about choosing the perfect sport and more about working hard once I've chosen. This advice was familiar. When I first told my dad I wanted to study in the US, he was opposed to the idea. He worried it was too risky to live alone in a foreign country at such a young age. But once I made up my mind to study here, he supported me completely and encouraged me to make most of my decision. That was what he meant by doing. It was taking action with intention. The phrase is not just think it or just choose it, but just do it. So I ended up choosing squash as my winter sport. I started at rec squash in sophomore year, but through hard work and practice, I made it to JV, and by junior year, I was part of varsity squash. What made me a varsity athlete was not the choice itself. It was the consistency and effort that followed. It wasn't about making the right decision, but about making my decision the right one. Thank you, Dad, for reminding me to take action. My final story is about fall family weekend. During the fall term of my junior year, I kept asking myself a question I'm sure many of us here have also faced. What should I pursue in life? Finding our passion, what we truly want to do, can feel impossible. After all, an important part of just doing it is figuring out what the it is. One morning in that fall, I got the unexpected news that my family will be visiting for family weekend. Since traveling from Spain is expensive and time-consuming, they rarely came to campus events. I was curious, so I asked them why they decided to come. The answer was that my younger brother Xiong had wanted to try the Mr. Beast burger, which was only available in the US at the time. After we all laughed about this, I realized something deeper. Xiong loves a lot of things. He loves playing soccer, gaming on Fortnite, collecting expensive perfumes, and finding cheap underdog clothes from secondhand stores. He only does what genuinely excites him. Even though his goal was just to eat a burger, his attitude toward life reminded me to follow my heart more, not just my head. This mindset led me to discover my passion for math and coding, and ultimately data science, which I plan to pursue in college. Thanks, Xiong, for always being true to yourself. With these three stories, I hope you understand what just do it means for me. It's about finding the it, taking the first step with courage, and following through with dedication and heart. And because all of us face hesitation, I hope you remember that you're not alone. Find people around you who can offer you help, just as I had my family. And so now, whenever you see me wearing Nike, think about that phrase, just do it. My name is Youm, and I'm a 3-year senior here on the Hilltop. Thank you.
Good morning, Pomfret, and happy Halloween to everybody. I see some people dressed up. I was born the same year that Sesame Street aired for the first time, so I very much appreciate what I'm looking at in front of me. As I did our 4 really wonderful chapel speeches today, Claire, the commentary on grief and anger, and to leap into other chapel speeches, the idea that time can help reveal resilience and expressions of love. Charlotte, that was short and sweet, but that was the point, I think. And we learned from James about taking time into account and making positive choices in our life. And then Jay, it wasn't just do it, you just did it, right? All 4 of you gave some fantastic chapel speeches today. The sun is shining, though it's a little breezy out there. It means we'll be able to congratulate all 4 of our senior speakers out on the terrace. And so I'd ask them to lead us out now into this beautiful day. Thank you.